Welcome to your local community education podcast, where you can make a difference and be heard. Each week, get updated on current local, state, and national educational news. Your Voice, Your Choice podcast with your host, Harmony Vanderhorst.
Welcome to the show. Today we have
Erica Hodges
and Dana McCabe.
We also have Emile Daly on the line with us. We had her on yesterday. She is with the UPU, and she is going to teach us about the legislation today. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you so much.
So we have, since our show yesterday, I've gotten lots of articles and some feedback about questions people have, and then some of the transparency bills. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with some of the things you're watching, bills of interest? You pick.
Let's start with those transparency bills.
Okay.
Because that one has created a life of its own, and it's been really fascinating to watch. So there are two transparency bills. There's SB 114, so 114.
Okay.
And then there's HB 234.
Okay.
And so everybody knows the distinction. SB means it started in the Senate. It's a Senate bill. And HB means it started in the House. It's a House bill.
So is that because of who sponsored it?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So you'll have, if you ever look on a bill page, you will see the sponsor and then the co-sponsor. Let me make sure that I'm right. That I'm saying that terminology right. That's how I think about it in my brain.
I believe
so
that is it.
I'm like,
Okay.
I should tell people actual terminology. How about that?
That makes sense, though.
Okay. So there would be the bill sponsor and the floor sponsor, meaning the bill sponsor could either be a senator or a representative, and that would indicate whether it starts with an HB or an SB. And then the floor sponsor is the opposite house that it didn't start in. And that will be, if it started in the House, it will be a senator. So that would be the sponsor. When a House bill is read in the Senate, that floor sponsor would be the one that runs that bill.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kinda?
So what is the significance between whether you get a senator to sponsor it or whether you get, so I'm assuming this is just a House of Representatives sponsor. So what's the difference? Why would you get a senator over a House sponsor?
It is really shockingly political and strategic.
Who would have guessed?
You're right. In that, so there are only 20, oh my goodness, my brain just shut off. 28 senators, 29 senators. Wow. Sorry, audience. It's one of those
You're
two
fine.
senators.
There's a lot less senators than there is representatives.
Correct. Yes. And there are 75 House members.
Okay.
So what that means is typically the Senate is it could move faster through the Senate because there's just not as much dialogue. There's not as much perspective to consider. So if you think you're going to have a lot of amendments that you might need to make in order to get this bill passed, you might want to start it in the Senate so that there's time to discuss those things, right? And then if it goes to the House and there's all these discussions and they've made amendments, they have to send that bill back to the Senate to say, are you cool with these changes that we made? And then the Senate can either say, no way, Jose, and then it goes back to the House and they have to decide if they're just going to accept it as is or offer different amendments. Or they can say, yeah, we're totally cool with those amendments. And so then it would then continue on its way to completion and to be passed.
It's so much like the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just on a state level.
Yep. Except for our houses aren't fight. They don't fight with each other, and we don't have our legislators are very respectful of each other.
Now, is that because we're mainly a conservative state and we have tended to be that way for years and years, and we really don't swing back and forth between like a Democratic and a Republican House majority leader and stuff? Does that help the climate in our House and our Senate and our how that works?
I think,
okay.
Yeah, I think that would be naive to think that isn't helping.
Okay.
However, there is goodwill between the Democrats and the Republicans.
That's
as a general rule. Like if you ever go to the houses and watch them on the floor and debate, you will often see Republicans and Democrats speaking to each other in areas of the room. Like it's not
hostile. It's not a hostile environment.
No, it's not. And it's not high school environment either, which is lovely for our elected representatives, right?
Yes.
Okay. But going back to these bills. So there's SB011, and that is a transparency bill that just passed in the Senate Education Committee.
And this is one that's currently on we're in Washington County School District. It's on their work meeting. Larry Bergeson, so our superintendent, put it on our work meeting to discuss on Monday with the council. So I'm assuming he's planning on educating the school board, or they're planning on discussing this particular bill.
That is interesting. And if I were in your community, what I would do is I would contact them and say, thank you so much for discussing it. We really encourage you to put out a public support for this. Like they could your school board could write a letter to their representative, to the whole House and the Senate, and say, we are in support of this. Please vote yes. They could do that. That's something they could do. They might, I don't know if they technically have to have a public hearing. I don't think so, but that is something that they could do. So what this bill tackles is it would require all school boards to adopt a policy of a public hearing and parental input when they are considering to adopt new district-wide curriculum.
Okay.
That's what, and then later it says that the districts also have to adopt a policy where it's very clear how the teachers can use, like how the teachers tell the school district what supplemental material they're using.
I have a quick question about that. Why would people oppose that bill? They say it's already there. What would be the point of opposing it?
So they're coming from an argument that if we can already do it, then why do we need to govern it? Right?
I get that.
Sure. Yeah.
But so what we found in our district, even there was with our second step program, we still could not find a vetting process that was very transparent, and they told us how it went and what parents were on there, because there was a lot of really concerning issues with our second step program. And so we would really like to see something to help hold them accountable, so that we can know without having to seem like these crazy parents that are like, hey, we want to know about that. Hey, what's in that? Hey, we're coming to all these meetings. Talk to us, me over here,
Right, because what that means is the current bill is not working, that they're standing behind.
I do understand, but there has to be some kind of, I saw online more pushback between that House Bill 234, that it really outlined what exactly they wanted to see. And that's where I saw teachers pushing back with the crazy things that they perceived as some crazy things they were expecting. So does this 114 not have as many specifics as the House Bill 234?
Nope, it doesn't touch teachers at all.
Okay.
And there has been a lot of people have used them interchangeably, and they're not at all.
They're different.
So, they're very different. And I found the line. So this is the only thing that would ever touch teachers. And it says, if anyone's a geek like me, it's line 241.
Okay.
So a local school board shall adopt a supplemental materials policy that provides guidance to educators on the selection of supplemental materials or resources, including whether any process or permission is required before classroom use of materials or resources. So that is completely left up to the local school board. Yeah, they get to decide. Do we need a process what is the process for teachers to use supplemental material in the classroom? Let's define that so that parents and everybody, so teachers have a very clear direction of how this works, how educational materials and instructions end up in the classroom. Let's just define what that looks like. And it could be, and it even says whether any process or permission is required. They, as a local school board, could choose, we don't need a process or permission to use supplemental resources. That could be something the board chooses, right? So what it does is it makes parent involvement at the very beginning of the curriculum choice, because then that supplemental material should fall into the curriculum, right? Like We're not teaching off curriculum things. That's not what this is saying. Supplemental means it helps the curriculum.
In addition to.
Yeah. In addition to it's an aid to teach the curriculum. That's
might
what
be an article that goes along with the subject that they can refer or reference.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I really liked about it, because when I was reading about the House Bill 234, when we try to get in here and really dictate, especially what teachers are doing on a daily basis, and then the process of thought of monitoring that's ridiculous. But where I thought the issue too was it's from the top down, and so if the curriculum's not there, teachers shouldn't be getting supplemental material that's inappropriate. It's not that it's not going to happen, but the chances are definitely decreased. And the other thing, when we had our show yesterday and Lindsay brought up what they were doing in the Loudoun County, is that you said that, in Virginia, with their governor adopting the app or not an app, but they had a tip and a tip line and an email they could send in. But we actually in Washington, and I don't know if you guys use this up north, but we have, it's called a Safer Schools, I think. It's an app to where it's a suicide prevention, or if there's a threat at the schools, parents can get on their kids and anybody can shoot in a tip. And I thought, well, why don't we just adopt, if there's inappropriate classroom material or things that have questions about it, let's just extend that app. It's very widely used in Washington County, and let the teachers have their free agency, but know that there is monitoring going on if it needs to come to that. Not sit here and
it's a brilliant bill.
Micromanage their every single move. That's not going to help.
Actually, it was an executive order, not a bill.
It was an executive order in Virginia, but I really So I like from what I've read, I think the SB 114 has a lot of potential to be good. Yeah.
So, and it did pass the Senate Education Committee 4-2.
Okay.
So one Democrat and one Republican opposed it. So not a huge opposition. That's pretty favorable. And a lot of times, not with this bill. This bill's too hot for it to go like this. But a lot of times, if a committee sends it back to the floor with a favorable recommendation, they won't spend a lot of time with it, and they will trust that the committee has done the discussion and all of that stuff. They have the committee discussions available to go and review, and of course they can always have debate on the floor. But we only have 35 working days in our legislature in Utah. 35.
So it has to go pretty fast. Our legislators aren't paid. So, this is not a full-time position. So they're supposed to come with their homework done, get the stuff passed, and get on.
And there's a lot of bills that come forth.
Yes, and there's a lot of bills. And so a lot of times they will trust what the committee's recommendation is. Not this bill. This bill will for sure be discussed.
So is this one still has one more? So when is it back on the docket to be discussed and voted on?
So it hasn't been assigned yet.
Okay.
It will go to the floor. Let me actually just check. So let me tell you what I'm doing right now. What I'm doing is I'm on le.utah.gov.
Okay.
And I've found the bill number because it's one that I'm tracking, and I'll explain how that happens in a minute. But then if you're on a bill page, you will see three things at the top. You'll see bill text, status, and hearings and debate. So what I'm going to click on right now is status, and that will tell me everything that the bill has gone through so far. And so the last thing that has happened is it received a favorable recommendation from the Senate Education Committee, but it hasn't been received on the Senate floor yet. It hasn't been put on the Senate calendars.
How long does it usually take for those to update?
Calendar.
Can't be too long.
They'll update immediately.
Okay. So it should be assigned. Quick. It should be assigned a time very shortly.
Right. And so it will be assigned to be on the second reading calendar of the Senate.
Okay.
And then what happens with that is order of entry. So how the bills are received from the different committees, that's how they land on the second reading calendar. And they'll just line up.
So would you recommend, if you're a parent up north, or if you're from down south and you want to if you're planning on going up to the legislative session just for either education or because you want to see what's happening or meet your representative, this would be a good bill to go and listen and watch what happens, correct?
Yeah, this would be a good one. And you won't be able to make any public comment anymore, but it would be really interesting to watch what the debate. And you can do it a couple of ways because, again, you can hear the so let's backtrack to how you can track a bill.
Yeah,
let's start there because that might be helpful. So if you go to le.utah.gov, the first thing you will see is the beautiful rotunda ceiling, and you'll see a search box. And if you scroll down just a little bit from there, you'll see another white bar that has resources, calendar, or my legislators. And if you click on resources, a list will pop up. And it is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the fifth one from the bottom.
On which section?
On the resources section.
Okay.
It's the fifth one from the bottom, and it's called bill tracking.
I've signed up for a few of those. That's actually an excellent tool. It's quick. It's easy.
We're
it's
on Erica's
user-friendly.
computer here. We're trying to follow you. Oh, okay.
Oh, I love it.
We got it.
And then you can see that you can add bills, you can add committees you want to watch, you can add anything that deals with code that you want to watch or other subjects, and you just enter in all of the subjects that you want. So let me. So
do you have to create? You have to create an account first before you get into that. So you've got to create an account, and then you can go in and pick bills and stuff that you want to follow.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So I always start with subjects. And I did this before the beginning of the session, but you can do it in the middle of the session. But some of mine are education, K through 12 education, open and public meetings.
So you just pick buzzwords, hot topics that you want to follow. Okay.
But, I missed the sex ed bill because the sponsor titled it Healthy Lifestyle.
There was a sex ed bill?
There is one.
Which bill is that?
It's Senator Reeby's bill, and it is, where is it?
Is it a good bill or not a good bill?
It's one that needs parents need to look and decide for themselves whether they're going to support it or not.
Correct. Yep. It's SB138.
And what is the status on that bill?
It has only had, so it's in Rules Committee.
Okay.
So what that means, now we know how to track a bill now. So let's talk really quick about what that actually means. What are you going to be seeing? So when a bill gets numbered, it will be what is called read in the House that it's assigned. So if it's an SB bill, it will be read in the Senate. If it's an HB bill, it will be read in the House. But read just means the short title. They don't read the entire bill for their first reading. So they'll just read it on the floor, and then it will go to that House's Rules Committee. So the House has their own Rules Committee, and the Senate has their own Rules Committee. And they have very little to do with rules. Actually, what they do is they, as a committee, decide which bill goes to which standing committee. And what that means is the Senate. So yesterday, HB114 passed the Senate Education Committee, and that is a standing committee. They also have a judiciary.
So they're assigned to a committee, typically with people who are all all education committee is for education bills. Agriculture committee would be for agriculture bills or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot coming under health these days.
Yeah, and there's a lot that's coming in under health, and I can't remember what the full title of it is. But here's the thing: is it's also strategic, because what if something touches both the judiciary and like business operations. Right.
Yeah, so then where does it go?
Right. So it's up to the Rules Committee to decide which committee it's going to go to. And they have a lot of power because if they like the people in the Judiciary Committee and they really like this bill, that's where they might send it. Or if they don't like the bill and they like the people in the House and Labor Committee, right?
Is it correct that the Speaker chooses who's on the Rules Committee?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. And the Speaker chooses who's on all the committees.
Oh.
The Speaker has a lot of power, but he is an elected position. So it's the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. They have two separate titles. They are both elected by their House.
Yeah, so it's not a popular election, or it's not a people election. We elect our representatives, and then our representatives elect those people who then appoint the committees.
And we have Lowry Snow and Brad Lass that are on the Education Committee.
Yeah, so two of our people down here are on the Education Committee.
Yeah, and Lowry is, I double checked, he is the chair of the House and the House Education Committee. So, and the chairs, they are a powerful position too, because they don't have to put any bills that they don't like on the agenda. Right. Like, even though a Rules Committee sends it to them.
Lowry told us in a meeting that he never doesn't put a bill before his committee. That's what he told us.
And that is his personal prerogative.
Yes, that's what he said. His personal prerogative wasn't to kill bills, but it was to put it before his committee. Is what he said. So,
and that's a strategy too that I think legislators adopt because they want things on record. Like their personal ideology is that, well, let's hear it for debate. Let's let the people hear what we're talking about, and if they take issue with it, they'll contact us. Kind of thing, you know. Yeah. So okay. So let's say
you know, we have about 3 minutes left too. I just realized that.
I can do it.
Okay.
No, I can do it. Okay. Because I want everybody to understand what they're tracking on their bill tracker. So then it will go to whatever committee it's assigned, right? And let's say it gets on the agenda. Let's say it gets approved. And it will go back to the original House that it started in. So with Senate, that would mean that it's going back, and it's the second reading now. Because remember, the first reading was the short title. The second reading is where they can do debates. They can do amendments. You can make amendments to a bill at any of these stages. And then it will either pass or fail. And if it passes in the Senate, it goes to a third reading. And then if it passes the third reading, then it will go to the House. The House will read it for a first time. It will immediately go to the House's Rules Committee. The House Rule Committee will send it to a House Standing Committee. And then it will go back to the House if it's approved. But the House does not have 3 readings. They only have 2. So after it comes from committee in the House, it will be discussed and voted on, and then that's it. Okay. For that
Emily, my understanding is too, with so many bills, a lot of times the representatives or the senators don't get to read every bill due to time that they have their staff. And so they're really relying on their staff to get it right.
Yep. That's correct. And they just don't, and they rely on their they rely on their colleagues in their standing committees for either an approval or it doesn't come at all, or a neutral. Like, I think they could send it back to the floor as a neutral as well. Like, we'll send it back to the floor, but we're at a gridlock, you know?
Okay, real quick before we go, is there other bills? So we're going to look up that one that has to do with sex education. We're going to look up that one and follow it. Are there any other ones that we should be watching?
So I will tell you that I don't think 234 is going to go anywhere. HB 234, I don't. It's actually not even what you described. It doesn't impact teachers the way everybody has said it
does. Okay, that's a misunderstanding. Okay.
Yep. It just asks for a list of what they're going to do, not like extensive
in detail. Like, that was just someone's interpretation of it. Okay.
Yep. And then there will be a school choice bill coming. We don't have the language for it. We don't have a number for it, but look out for that one. It will be Representative Perucci will be the floor sponsor, and Senator Colomore will be the Senate.
Okay. And we will be talking more about that because I know in different states, it's been great in some and some love it and some hate it. So it's a very controversial subject as well.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And I'm happy to come back on.
Yes. And we probably will
too.
have you come back on in the next week or two. And we just want to put a shout out for the Utah Parents United and thank Emile Daly for being here with us today. Like and subscribe so you can see us live and see what's happening, especially in this legislative session.
And be a contributor to UPU.
Yes.
Monthly.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, have a great weekend.
You've been listening to Your Voice, Your Choice podcast with Harmony Vanderhorst. Like and follow our Facebook page, subscribe with your favorite podcast platform, and most importantly, share this with your friends. Till next time, this has been Your Voice, Your Choice podcast with Harmony Vanderhorst. This has been a production from A Podcast Studio.